therapist, there's always a little bit of a voice in the back of their head that says, how would you know? You've never felt this way. You've never done what I've done. You know, you're not as bad as me. You don't know the pain. And it's in the back of their mind, no matter how good, you know, the practitioner is, they can't make a full connection with that addict because the addict doesn't fully trust them because they keep feeling like how could they ever possibly know how I feel? Whereas we have been there. Roy's been to the depths of hell. I mean, we've been suicidal, we've been depressed, we've been, you know, all these different, totally obsessed, or we couldn't think of anything but our addiction or but our crazy fears. So when you've experienced that kind of pain and you're not there now, you can totally meet that person and they trust us. And we talk about these things in a language that they say, oh my God, she's read our mail. Like, you know, they know how I feel, and there's that bond that is there that isn't there with other people who haven't been there. So that is part of the way that Roy's able to really help people, is they really trust him, and he has authority. You know, when you have addictions and you've overcome them, you have an authority, and addicts need somebody they can listen to, because they're following their plan all the time. It's getting them nowhere. You know, and so they need somebody they can listen to and really take direction from. And that's not easy to establish that kind of authority with an unruly, defiant addict, basically.
Well, you know, there's not any feeling a person could possibly have that I have not felt. That's what it really comes down to. Because, you know, there's a lot of people who've studied and you know, about these things in textbooks and classrooms, but there's something about having actually experienced the feelings. I've experienced severe panic attacks, crippling phobias, severe depression, guilt, I mean, just fear, terror. I mean, there's not anything a person could be feeling.
Loneliness, in spite of having friends.
You know, despair. I mean, literally, there's not anything that someone could be feeling that I haven't experienced. And that what we know is that there's not anything that if a person's able to face it honestly, there's not anything that can't be overcome. And so it really has to do with a person getting safe enough, feeling safe enough, where that they can afford to face the things that they think are so unacceptable, that they're so unacceptable that they're literally burying them alive, pretending they don't have them, in which case there's no hope of overcoming.
Gotcha. Now, you don't claim to be a quick fix guru that, you know, you come out, you don't wave any magic wand to these folks, and there's no book like a 12-step program or a book or literature that you give to people to say what you do or how you do it. How would you best describe, just, I guess, because it's difficult to describe what you do. That's been the biggest project, to describe what you do, how you do it, but the people that have gotten help from you rave about what you do. So I guess my question would be is, in a brief maybe synopsis, put together what you do, how you do it, that makes you different from the typical therapist per se.
Well, what we do is essentially is we're getting in touch with all the problems center in the subconscious mind. And that's been there for forever and ever. It's been reinforced. People gather certain ideas in their early childhood, and then those ideas are reinforced, and every time they come near facing those things, they just reinforce it again. And what we're talking about doing is literally being able to unlearn those old ideas, those old belief systems, in which, in other words, to literally excavate the subconscious mind is what we're looking to do, so that unlearning the old ways and old plans, old ideas is what happens. Is because the truth is going to be there. If you face down the myth, the untruth, the faulty data, faulty beliefs, faulty philosophy, faulty way of living, and what happens is the addiction, the eating disorder, whatever it is removed immediately. That's what happens when a person comes to us. They will immediately be free of their excess food or alcohol or drugs or whatever, gambling, whatever it might be, because those things are really not the problem. Those things are essentially ways that they're trying to treat the problem. And so when they come here, they immediately have those things removed, but then we have to start looking at the underlying causes and the reasons for what caused them to need or to feel that they need those things in the first place, because that's really the only hope, because otherwise it's just going to be a matter of time. I mean, you can get anybody sober, you send them to treatment, lock them up for 30 days, don't give them any alcohol, they're going to get sober, but nothing's going to have changed, really changed fundamentally. And we know that if nothing changes fundamentally within a person, then nothing is going to change fundamentally in their lives.
It's people have amazing, like Roy said, lifting of their cravings very early on in the work. But we know that that's, like Roy was saying, I'm just going to say this in a different way, just if it's helpful. We know that that's only the beginning, because the addictions are a distraction. Like, people are obsessed with alcohol or drugs or getting their fix because they're in so much pain inside that they can't bear to look at it. And it's easier to fixate on their, drug of choice. Then it's easier to do that than to sit with this unbearable, overwhelming pain. And what happens here is that they feel so much safety and so much connection that they've been searching for their whole life in all the wrong places. They feel so much connection here because we've been there, because this is a very loving and safe environment, that they quickly don't need that fix. And then we enable people to address that overwhelming pain to where it's not so overwhelming, and to where they can look at it for what it is and not feel like it's going to kill them if they stop and face it.
But, to further answer your question, we do have a formula. We have a tried and true formula that works. It's just a matter of each person, we apply it in a different way with each person, as depending on what they're able to, what they can do at the time. And we just take each person on an individual case-by-case basis.
So
it's called the Nelson Method. We have a method that we take every person through, but we walk them through it personally. So we haven't put it in a book, because it wouldn't be the same reading in a book as it is when the love and the transmission of safety is there. Then it just happens organically. I mean, we give people assignments, there's lots of writing, we teach them how to meditate, we do a lot of concrete life skills and self-care tools and practices. So a lot of that, because we want, we don't want to do it for them, we want to teach them how to take care of themselves and how to create their own environment of safety and love. But first they got to feel it and be with it, here.
So you mentioned love, and I see you guys are very affectionate. Now, when Roy was treating you, I know Roy is a hugger. He'll sit on his lap. Did you find that weird? Some people may say, well, that's kind of weird, kind of kooky that you're hugging people. The typical therapist is not going to hug a patient or have them sit on their lap and just be able to be there. When that happened?
I did. I first was like, was he like trying to cop a feel or something? I mean, I had that very cynical, scared, I was afraid. First time I met him, the first day when I heard him speaking, and he was saying hi to people afterwards, and he was giving people his phone number. He gave me a hug, and he said, if I can ever be a friend to you, I want to. And he also told me he loved me. He tells everybody he loves them. And I'm like, he says that to everybody, and so I had that kind of, that's no big deal kind of thing. But knowing him, we were stopped one time. I got a ticket, and he tells a police officer he loved him.
No, you didn't get a ticket.
Oh, he didn't get a ticket.
Exactly. That's what
so I told him he loved him. You might not have told him that if I got a ticket. So, anyway.
He had her cold. She was doing about 43 and a 25, and he let her go.
But anyway, when you're guarded. When you approach anybody, you're guarded. So people don't open up right away. It's not an instant thing. But Roy will sit with somebody, and oftentimes in their first visit, they'll have just tears rolling down their face because they are stopping long enough to have the pain catch up to them, and they're having their heart touched. So it's kind of a, I mean, Roy is he's kind of a character, and you have to sort of, I mean, he catches people off guard in how loving he is, and how, you know, just how he is. I mean, you never know what's going to come out of his mouth. I mean, I have no idea what he's going to do or say to somebody, and I'm, you know, and that's part of his magic, really, is that it's not formulaic, and there aren't rules around what he does and doesn't do like there are in a therapist's office. People need love. Like, you know, people need love. I go to a doctor's meeting once a month with health practitioners, and everybody's got all these formulas, and these are holistic people, so they've got a lot of understanding about the body and about the mind, but the only thing that's missing is the love. And these addicts are starving for love. They are starving for touch. I mean, they are starving to have somebody stop and actually care. To where, I mean, we'll spend any amount of time with people. We're not watching the clock with people because that's confining. You know, Roy will stay up till 2 in the morning with somebody if they're not finished with going through something. He completely gives himself to the process, and that unconditional love, it touches people in a very deep place, which helps them propel forward.
Well, what we offer is something that no therapist can do. No doctor, no therapist, no minister, priest, rabbi. We're offering something that's not available somewhere else. If it was available somewhere else, we would go join them. We weren't looking to be crusaders. It's just we realize what's out. We know what's out there. If there was something else out there that worked like what we have to offer, we're not looking for people who can get the help they need otherwise. I mean, we're literally looking for people